Welcome to Out of the Noise podcast, a spiritual growth podcast. This podcast is about holding sacred space to help assist humanity to raise their consciousness through connection by having courageous conversations out of the noise of mainstream with heart-centered leaders, wisdom keepers, and divine humans expanding into their authenticity and soul purpose. We will explore spiritual concepts, practices, and to deepen into your healing and the collective. Priestess Lilly is a medium, light activator, and heart-centered leader that is committed in raising the light frequency and consciousness here on Earth for us all. You can work with her and learn more by visiting www.priestesslily.com. Enjoy your spiritual learnings.
Maree Eddings is a leadership coach and mentor for women specializing in change and transformational leadership. She is the founder of the Energy Academy, Divine Leaders of Change, and the Great Grounding Plaza, and the brand new program, Bold Magic Mind Mastermind. Maree's mission is to redefine leadership outside of these old structures so that women can hold their true power and influence regarding the situation or people that are around them. Maree's work focuses on helping visionary change, making women unconditional themselves from the patriarchal beliefs and behaviors so that they can make decisions and lead through the discernment of energy and not from an old. It's time for women to stop old patterns and behavior and start leading spaces for change in every conversation and in every relationship. Maree's experts come with 25 years plus of working with people in business and life with a natural curiosity of why some people validate their own beliefs and values in certain situations and consequences of that. She is a trained NLP, Reiki, matrix therapies, and has created her own modalities of energy healing and coaching, behavioral discernment for leaders, and centers her work through her energy consciousness, vibrational mapping therapy. Maree's clients are luminaries, change makers, heart-centered people, coaches, and healers who have the vision to lead change in the new era. They are here to connect to their wisdom, power, and truth of their own energy and an influential voice in the room. Welcome, Maree. How are you today?
I am fabulous. Sister Lilly, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I always love our conversations on my podcast because they are so rich and activate so much insight and change for the listeners. And so I know today it's not going to be any different.
There's a bit of magic around, isn't there? There's a bit of, I don't know about you, but it feels, my crown chakra is very sparkly, and yeah, there's a lot of energy around, so it's going to be great.
Oh God, there is a lot of energy around, and you know, I think that's very much where people are deeply being activated and nudged forward to change, which is pretty much a bigger conversation that we're going to talk about today. So right now we're witnessing a pretty chaotic world. I think that's actually a polite way of putting it. We're really witnessing the collapse of the patriarchal structures in their fullness. How do we avoid not slipping into fear instead and recognize this time to be a real potent transformational time and era for us as a collective and individually?
It's a fabulous question. And I think what would be really good, because there is so much going on right now. You look at the stuff that's coming out of Hollywood. It's big. It's going to get bigger. That's not a prediction. It's just how the patriarchy works. And it's a big distraction. And we can really descend into thinking and talking about individuals. And while there are individuals participating in their behaviour, the patriarchal system, we must always remember, is a system in which we all participate. And so let's just take a step back. A lot of the times when we've done personal development work or you're in coaching work, your work will lead you down the path to talk about your parents and the role they play in our lives and their behaviour and how that's impacted you. And we talk about inner child. We must remember our parents also had parents, and they had parents, and they had parents. And all of those parents participated in a system that was relevant to their life. Sometimes they had rights, sometimes they didn't, sometimes they had money, sometimes they didn't. It's a very resource hierarchical based system that we live in.
Mm.
We have come to the pointy end of that system where we are fortunate enough of all the things that our ancestors have gone through that we can see far more than they could see. We have far more access to our own internal resources and external resources and choice and decision to create change. So I think if we remember that's the container that we live in, that we're not, and if you go back, but how far back you go, but you think about the kings and queens systems and the peasants and all the feeding and who got food, who didn't get food, through to who got rights, who didn't get rights. Women never had body autonomy. Like those things have always been in our culture. But right now, at the pointy end of the system, we can go, I can be part of that, or I can choose to come out of that. Let's look at what that is. Look, you talk about, the Hollywood stuff, the P. Diddy stuff, massive destruction. Let's look at the behaviours that create that in world, because you can say that individual, they're bad, they're this, they're that. And they're creating an environment where other people are being oppressed. They're creating an environment where other people are being abused. They're creating an environment where they're taking resources from other people because that's how they're feeling power. And I'll be really clear, I have no sympathy for any of them, but I do appreciate that they're part of a bigger system. Let's be clear what we're looking at. We can now see it, but it's been going on for years. And a lot of people for years would have known about it, but not even thought to talk about it or raise it or think there was something wrong with it because that was how the system was. I remember, I don't know about you, Lily, but I've been in workplaces where I've been, harassed, assaulted, and I was told really clearly, you can make a complaint or you can let us handle it, because if you make a complaint, we know it's going to be harder on your career. Like we made choices because we know the system was never going to be in our favour. And so I also appreciate the system why people didn't raise it 30 years ago, because they may not have had anywhere to go. But we are now in the light. We are now in a very significant space of change. We can see it now, and we can sit back and we can all go, no, none of that is appropriate, and none of that is how we want to live in this world. None of that is how we want people to be treated. None of that is how we want children to be seen. Like we can have a really clear sense of, regardless of what the ramifications might be in inverted commas, it doesn't matter. But we've also got to a point where those ramifications are not there really anymore. They might be, let's be honest, but the system itself is prepared to uncover it all for us to rationalise in our life. So right now, space of change, be really clear what we're looking at. We are looking at a system that is crumbling, and specifically the behaviours of individuals that we have said has on some level has been condoned, validated, accepted, ignored, not felt helpless against. We're no longer in that space. That's a big shift. So if we want to stay out of fear, we must remember, what behaviour am I in? Am I supporting this? Because fear lives in this system. Am I denying? Am I justifying? Am I intellectualizing? Am I getting involved in a conversation where, it's, we use the word complex and complicated? You are deep in the belly of the system. This is not complicated and it's not complex.
No, it isn't. I remember when I first ever had you on my podcast, and it was about the patriarchal system. And I remember thinking to myself, and we were talking about then the collapsing of the system, and we talked about everything has to collapse. And at that time, that was probably four, maybe 5 years ago now.
Yep.
4 years ago. It seemed so far away. It seemed like something that was just, you couldn't see it for what it really was. And now I look at every structural system, and I think people probably might still be awakening to the fact that they're actually in a system, and I get that too. But now we're looking at every system collapsing: medical, banking, money, Hollywood, television, media, all the things that have fed off suppressing people pretty much to some degrees and taking away their individual rights as a human being.
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean we'll necessarily end up with a world with none of those things. It just means that how we connect with them and what we expect from them and what we demand from ourselves is different. So all the structures and systems that were created in the Piscean era, which coincides when patriarchy started to take over in 5,000 years ago, is siloed. It's very narrow. It's hierarchy top down. So it means that in that line, somebody's always being oppressed. Mm-hmm. And we then start to think and make decisions with that bias. Governments do it when they go in to make policy decisions about tax. They assume somebody's going to pay more tax, somebody's going to suffer more. Like, we've already come to our world with the idea that, well, that's just the way it works. With us moving out of the Piscean era, which we are officially starting, I think it's in 3 weeks' time, on the 20th of November, where Pluto goes back into Aquarius and will stay for the next 40-odd years. It's the official no more Pisces. What does it actually mean in day-to-day? It means that for the last 5,000 years, the energy that was created through the collective was feeding the Piscean era. It was feeding hierarchy. It was feeding ego. It was feeding power over others. It was feeding who has the most toys wins idea. It was feeding that if people had money, they must be better than you. It fed all of that ego insecurity that comes with the wounded masculine and feminine. When we move into the era of Aquarian, we have shifted out of structure, which is Capricorn energy, and linear thinking into Aquarian, which is collective thinking, and it's about frequency and it's about vibration and it's about light. And so everything that we knew to be, or we strive to have, which was dense, heavy, hard, work hard, push hard, hustle, and then I get my financial reward, is now being torn up. Yeah. And so our physical body goes, and everyone I know this year has been feeling this, like we know that what I've been doing in the past doesn't work, but my body needs something different from me. My thoughts are different. You might be doing the same work, but how you want to do it is different. And the demand you have on yourself to stop tolerating BS is different. And so at the time of this conversation, Pluto went direct back into Capricorn 2 days ago, which means it's got the last 4 weeks of its patriarchal fuel. And Pluto, for those who don't know, as a furthest planet, and I'm not an astrologer, I'm a person of energy. It is, as the furthest planet, it pulls the underground, what's underneath us, up to the light. It's all the belly, it's all the guts of everything is coming forward. So we are seeing, and we'll see some more in the next 4 weeks, all of that belly will be shown. What we then get to do is, what do we do about it after that? As things, because when we deal with, as you know, Lilly, frequency and light and vibration is really quick moving. Structural energy is really heavy and slow and dense. Oh, my head. The light and the speed in which we get to do things is changing, but it has been changing for a long time. Like, we know that, but now we're getting into the spaces where our body's going to not want to deal with the density at all, and it's only going to want to deal with the light.
It's Piscean era. The last 4 weeks is like the last hurrah.
It's the last hurrah. So, we may see more underbelly. We may see, if you look at the US right now, and hello to all the US listeners, but like, we're leading up to an election, and from the outside looking in, and again, I'm someone of energy, it's like, this is like we'll just say whatever we want, make it up, because we assume people will believe us because we're in power. That's Piscean era, like at the guts of it. I can do whatever I want. I can take advantage of whatever I want because I'm sitting at a level that people have given their power away to, and so they'll just follow. Now, that's been true, and it was even true in 2016, but in 2024, that's a really different proposition for people. They may not have changed their thoughts, but their energy definitely feels different, and their ability to just give their power away is different.
Yeah, I just keep saying the world's about to combust on itself.
The patriarchal system is about to combust on itself.
Absolutely. What a time to be alive.
It is. And like we mentioned before, we've got on here, like, one of the things that come up for me is think about the role that women have. I remember, about 10 years ago, I saw that quote, the Western world will be saved by the woman, or the woman will be saved by the Western woman. And at the time, there was a lot of, spirituality conversations, but there was also a lot of white privilege. Mm-hmm. We assumed that we were going to take the mantle off the white man and just put a white woman there. All privilege, all capitalism, all the stuff. We now know there's no platform. We don't need a throne. We're getting rid of all of that. Women can step into this space because we're deeply called to our femininity, our feminine power, which dances hand in hand, heart to heart with the divine masculine. It's a combined marriage. It's not separate. When we think about it's great to be alive, I think about, my grandmother was born at the turn of this last century, 1907, and she lived for 97 years. And I think about what she saw in her life. There was cars, she didn't have a vote, then she had a vote, planes, all the things that came into her life that she didn't necessarily experience. But then I think of me, who's half the time that she's lived, and the speed in which my life has changed compared to her life. We must remember, and then the speed at which her life would have changed compared to her mother's life, that women, we've always been evolving, but the speed in which we're doing this is much quicker. And that's because we're moving closer and closer and closer to the Aquarian era, which started back in the 1850s, whatever it was the first conversations about spirituality. And we've just been chipping away. And now we're this close, it's like the barriers are off. And so while the patriarchal system is absolutely imploding because there's no more energy feeding it, Piscean energy has been closed off. There's nothing feeding this power structure except for desperation of the people who want to hold on to it. And that's what we're seeing right now, the desperation of people to go, I want to stay here because I feel safe and I don't have to take responsibility. And, if I have more resources than other people, I feel better about myself. That's the shorthand version.
Yeah. It's just fascinating. It is so fascinating.
It's so fascinating.
In moments of profound change, because this is what we're in. We are in massive, profound change when we don't fully understand what we're being birthed into. How do we trust the process and make bold moves towards a new way of being?
I love this question so much. I got a bit emotional.
It's a big question. We're not here to piss around.
It is, but I got a bit emotional when I heard you say it because I think about the power that we've given away in the old structures and systems. It's really sad. And it was also necessary. I think about all the women who came before me that didn't have power. That was either physically taken from them or they didn't know how to do it, including my mother and including myself. And I think about the opportunity we have now. It is a big shift because the patriarchal system, with all of its grossness, provided us with a place to hold on to. We knew how it behaved. A lot of us retreated and escaped away from it. We retreated into ourselves, or we physically escaped environments, people, jobs, families. We ran away. We escaped our bodies. The big thing we need to remember is that the only place that we can go in these moments is back into our body. Because the only place where we are actually ourselves is internal. And the external environment reflects who we are internally. And I get right now internally might feel really scary because we are still reflecting the old system. And because the old system is so activated right now, we might be still wanting to avoid going inside because we're scared we're going to find that. We're scared we're going to find those old wounds, and we're scared we're going to find the old shame and guilt and helplessness. But the truth is, just as the system has collapsed, those systems within you have also collapsed. And the part of you that wants to lean into the light and lean closer to your Aquarian vibration is in there going, come on, come closer, come closer. You must remember the old hierarchy is gone. No one's asking you to descend to the bottom to scratch your way to the top. That is over. Yeah. And that's one thing in the personal development where we need to get a head around. We're not being asked to scratch from the bottom and come up. We're not asked to, poke that wound anymore. We're actually being asked to lead from the light, which means getting out of those old wounded masculine and feminine vibrations, which is behaviors of justification, denial, competition, blame, violence, oppression. And we're being asked to marry the divine masculine and feminine energies, which is trust. The divine masculine builds trust, which is really foreign for most of us, that we lead with trust. We normally build up to trust. But what's on offer is you need to trust. And so why I think your question is so poignant right now is it's probably a bigger question than people realize is you need to give over to trust. But you're not giving trust over to the old Piscean era. You're not giving trust over to people you can't trust or systems and structures and thought patterns that are deceptive. That's what's collapsing. And be curious to find where your boldness and your magic and your wisdom and your connection and your intuition, which is part of the divine feminine, where they all sit so they can marry together. Does that answer your question?
That answers my question. So that's so interesting. When you just spoke around that, obviously I'm going through a deep journey with my mother, and she doesn't probably have very much longer on this earth plane. And I went and saw her, and I thought about, what did my mother teach me? And I've been really thinking about that. Like, what has my mother taught me? The fascinating thing is, my mother has taught me not to live my life in fear, because she has been in fear all of her life. She has been in fear of the system, in fear of standing in her power, in fear of just on multiple levels, and judgment, because her fear has stopped her from getting closer to her authentic self, because of people judging her. And, she's been very much hiding in her own shadow. And when I think about what my mother taught me, she never used her voice. She never stood in her power. She never owned her soul mission and what she came here to do. And, for many years, I've been really frustrated and angry at my mother. And, now in reflection, she actually made me, the best version of myself. Because
it's interesting because
she couldn't heal herself in the system. She couldn't, and now looking back, I go, it's my mother that taught me to fear the fear, but have the courage to do it differently, because it's something that I grew up with, that vibration, every day of my life. So my body repulsed it as an adult. And that has probably been my real unpacking this last week. And so when you spoke and just, there's lots of pennies dropping, I was like, there's healing in that. The fact that I can speak that. My mother didn't teach me unconditional love. I know she loved me, but she didn't teach me unconditional love. And so for other people would be like, that would be what their mother taught me. My mother taught me to be the most resourceful person and the best version of myself in the world from her being descended under the cross?
You know, they say that we always have the parents that we're meant to have.
You asked me that the other day, and I went, "Oh, piss off! Don't start that on me." But now I'm like, I get it. Okay, the penny's dropped.
And it's a hard pill sometimes, because especially for those more intuitive and sensitive, empathic people that grew up in households that didn't reflect that. And so a lot of us were meant to believe that what we were doing was weird, and all the other words that probably were thrown at us. And so we hid it. So when I talked about before that we left our body, we left our families, we escaped because we didn't feel safe being ourselves, because that old patriarchal system is violent. It is about rejection, and it's about abandonment, and it's about suffering. The thing is, we can react in a few ways. We can say, and I find this very common with my clients, I'll say, I'm never going to be like my mum or my dad. And so we go off on this journey of not being them, which means that we don't ever get to be ourselves. Because while we're focused on not being them, they are still, and their vibrational reality is our focal point. And so as long as we're not being them, we feel energetic relief, we feel relaxed. But it's based on not being around them, or being in odds with them, or being in a constant battle, because the things that we want from them, they do not have the capacity to give us. Unconditional love, as we find in the world of frequency and vibration, can only come from ourselves. And if our parents never felt or understood or had unconditional love for themselves, they have no way of giving it to us. Even if my mum loved me so deeply, she smothered me, but it wasn't unconditional. It was very, very bloody conditional love for me, because that's what she had in her life.
Yeah.
So she tried to pass that to me. And for a long time, I thought there must be something wrong with me for her to have so many conditions, until I went, oh, that's all she knows, because so many conditions were put on her. So the beautiful thing about now is, you said it's a great time to be alive. For those of us who have the insight, the curiosity, the draw, the pull, you're not just doing it for you. You're actually changing the collective and the communities that you live in and your family members by agreeing to, committing to, devoting to yourself, that internal world of developing your unconditional love. I mean, on the physical world, in the physical body, we are shifting from the solar plexus to the heart. In our lifetime, that's moving from 14 to 21 in ages. And so we're going from a teenager to an adult, or beginning of what we think is an adult. And that's a really different energy. It's an energy where there's no judgment. It's an energy of acceptance and love and exploration and curiosity, which the solar plexus does not have. And so physically we feel differently as our heart calls us forward. And it's, just think, we're closing up a 5,000-year reign, and we're here to open up the next 5,000 years.
Yeah. That's
and
cool.
So we're the ones that are here to open the heart. We're not going to be the ones that will see it in 5,000 years unless we come back, unless we sign on that dotted line again and say we'll come back. But we're here to open the heart. And the heart energy is, I've got tingles, is so exploratory, and it's so calming and softening and loving, and it's fierce in its power of self. That's a really exciting change to be here for.
Interesting. I totally agree with you. And, I remember meditating just recently, and Spirit said to me, this is the ending. This is the end. What we're in right now is the ending of our karmic cycles.
It is, because they were tied up.
Yeah, they're tied up in that Piscean area. So when we come back through, we're not coming back through with all the baggage that we've had before. And this is why so many people are going through unpacking so much stuff in like one sitting, because we're actually digging into the old fragments.
It's not going to be there again. And there's two sides to that, right? Like, we're digging it out so it can go, because it's going to go anyway. But our physical body's going like, quick, get rid of it. I want more space. I want more
Move
space.
it on, move it on.
Go on, go on. And I don't need to think about it anymore. Just get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. And the other part is because the shift from Piscean to Aquarian is literally like night and day.
Yeah.
And your connection is quicker right now. Everything is sped up. And because we don't need to wade in the wound anymore. And that is what I'm really looking forward to. People don't have to sit in the wound for year upon year upon year upon year. It's more about that beautiful sense of self, your magic, your intuitive self, the world that you dream about is actually here. And what we need you to focus on is creating that, not being where you were, but being where you want to be. That's a massive shift.
And I think that's what I think when you get your head around that, now I understand why I'm purging, digging out all of this stuff, because it's ready to be released and cleansed.
I keep thinking it was like, the universe is going, quick, give me more, give me more, give me more. Like it's pulling it out. Because some mornings I wake up and I'm like, where is this feeling of despair come from? Where is this feeling of uncontrollable tears come from? And I know it's all not mine, but it's like, why every day is this happening when I'm not thinking about it? It's because it's collapsing. And so it's like the unraveling of the jumper, like it's being pulled and it's being unraveled. Let it unravel. And as it unravels, just be in awe of the light that comes through, because that's where we need to focus. And that comes from internal, the heart, in the physical body, in the esoterical body, in our emotional bodies, is now the center of our focus. And it's bloody exciting to think that. Just think of all those hours and years and money we have spent on understanding our wounds.
Oh my God, I was just talking about this with my sister-in-law. I was like, you know what? Think of all the counseling and courses and everything we've done and how much money we've spent on learning, understanding who we are.
And so many people have got stuck there. And you know what? We also know that some people will always be stuck there and they're not meant to move.
Yeah.
And here's the other realization of right now is not everyone will make the flip over.
No.
And we will probably feel like we're living in two worlds, which is why when we talk about change leadership and committing to being that leader, it's really important that we know that those behaviors, we can't wait for those people to change, because they may not. That might not be on their soul's plan to change. Their soul's plan may have been to just poke us and annoy us and, wound us enough till we moved. Like they're never meant to come with us. We need to realize that. Back to our first question, the big distractions that are happening right now, we're not meant to wait for them to be resolved. We're not meant to wait for any of those people to see the light or become redeemed. Like they're done. They can do whatever they like. They're not in any sort of leading energy or leading thought pattern or leading ability. They never were, but now we can see that. And so if you are in that, I'm being pulled forward, but I feel like I'm being split apart, congratulations, because you are really stepping forward. The decision you need to make, and the thing we need to get really clear in our energy system, is the light is now leading, and any of the wounds you can pack them up and put them under your bed and burn them, because they're not coming back.
Yeah. So how do we stay aligned in our truth, in the light, while the world shifts around us? How do we anchor more into that?
So let's look at the physical body. So our physical body will be telling us a lot right now. Our physical body loves being expanded and it hates being contracted. So, and for those people who, when we have bartered with the contracted and expanded, it's because there's a part of us that believes we don't deserve to fully be expanded when there's contraction in the world. But we don't need to remember it's part of a string. And so every time that you are feeling to that contracted space, like you're empathizing or you're picking up the energy of the world. Like I had a friend of mine message me this morning and say she had this dream about something and then told me a movie she watched the night before. And I said, you really entangled with that movie, because she's in the dream, she was playing out these aspects happen to the movie. And that's what we need to always remember. We are entangled with where we focus our attention and our energy. So you need to choose where you want to entangle. And the good thing about energy is it will go wherever you send it. So you don't have to go through a wound cleansing or whatever anymore. You can say, right, I don't want that. I shift it. I release that energy back to where it needs to go, and I recommit to where I am. And in the beginning, the recommitting can be happening multiple times a day, multiple times an hour. We get to see the difference. I know what it's like when I decide to sit in front of Netflix for a couple of hours, who I am, versus who I am when I'm not. When we get really clear that energy has two different value points for ourselves, we get to make different decisions. I don't care if you sit in front of Netflix. It's not a judgment. It's the experience you want to have. Don't expect to be able to be in your massive, amazing power, grounded, potent, loving, compassionate, prosperous if you're sitting in front of Netflix for 8 hours a day, because the vibration of that is not compatible. And when we get down to the ticky-tacks of it, we're moving into the vibrational world, and vibration never lies. It is what it is. It just is what it is. You choose. The beautiful thing is it's time to fall in love, and like full love with a more expanded version of you. So you don't want to be in that contracted energy, because let's be honest, it tastes crap. It's toxic. It's gross.
And, I think that's really important. It's the system. It's some of our relationships that we have. It's also, for me, it's food.
Absolutely. It's all of it.
It's sometimes, and, I know that during a certain time that we just had recently here in New Zealand, when the world went through it, I stopped following every news channel that keeps saying I was a bad person for not choosing what majority of people were choosing. I was just like, I'm not participating in this dysfunction.
Well, one of the things that we've had the opportunity to look at since the end of 2019, what the world was shown was the systemic dysfunction of our systems, and how deeply our systems are propped up by illusion and propped up by smokes and mirrors. Absolutely. And we think about power structures, they're all smokes and mirrors. Make them believe this and they'll do what we want, or even better, they'll do nothing. Like, they just won't make a decision, and by default they're not going to try and crumble the system. So we've had, and if you think about from 2019 to the beginning of 2024, we had like 20 lifetimes in those 4 years. And, the distance between 2024 and 2032 is equipped to be the most amount of change we'll ever see in the history of the world as we've known it. It's not because we will achieve more, it's because we will receive more. And to receive more, we have to be in a vibrational reality to that. And we will stop thinking that the amount of cars we have in the driveway is a measure of success. And we'll stop looking for people with money to hand our power over to. And we will call out in various different ways the dysfunction. But we also won't need to have as much anarchy, because there's no energy being fueled into the Piscean era. There's nothing at the bottom of it anymore. It's like a skeleton that's about to go to dust. And so individually, we get to make that choice every day and know that all the energy now, all the energy that's coming from source, it's coming from the earth, it's coming from you, is vibrating towards the light. It's not vibrating towards the structure. So we can have less structure, more movement, more connection, more prosperity for more people. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree, sister. It's quite a powerful time to be alive. It really
is a powerful time. And look, I get that it can feel overwhelming because the ways we've done things in the past have felt really heavy and really soul destroying. And we need to get used to this new environment.
Yeah. How can we cultivate the courage to act as a leader of change, even when the outcome is so unknown? Because right now there's so many people out there that are spiritually awakening to their internal self, their soul's voice, their soul's mission. There's multiple things happening at once here. How do we cultivate the change just to go, I'm here? And not worry about that it doesn't look Instagram ready or it doesn't look.
Find that the Instagram ready will disappear, because
Yeah, isn't that cool?
when we move into divine masculine and feminine, we move out of this thing called authenticity into transparency. So authenticity on an energetic level has no energetic value. Authenticity is a subjective view that we move through on our way to the divine. But it doesn't actually sit energetically in a divine set of behaviors. Authenticity is a protective measure that I think it's important for people to understand it, but it's not an endpoint. We move from authenticity to transparency, and transparency is a space where we live with absolute trust that we are always in the unknown. We have no control. That's the old system. I'm going to try and control the unknown to make me feel like I have power and power over myself. It's an illusion. Whereas in these moments when you talk about the unknown, it's all unknown because you are the creator of the known. And only you, therefore, can, once you're in the moment of the creation of what you want to do, your own magic, your own decision to be bold, your own decision to be wise and to be intuitive and to marry your instincts and your intuition together and to work with all the things that you want to work with and be in the world, you get comfortable with the unknown. Because the magic of who we are as human beings, as an energetic being, is that we're creating it as we go along. God, my crown chakra just went off.
Oh my God, for me, the unknown is where the magic is.
And we have to get excited about the unknown, but we can only get excited about the unknown that we have to trust that we're in a space to be taken care of. We are protected, we're taken care of, we're in the flow, we're in the magic, we get to design it, we get to sparkle it, we get to propel it and open it and consume it and be it. We don't get to control it.
Yeah. The unknown is just limitless too.
Oh my God, it's so unlimitless. It's like, that's why we came. So for those of you listening who have had that, whether you've been doing your work for a long time, whether you're in your magic, whether you know exactly what it is you're here to do, or you thought you did, but now you're going, I've got no idea, that unknown is calling you. The unknown is calling you to build your trust systems and build your own magic and to build a relationship with the unknown.
And I think I just want to say this because I think this is really, I'd love to know your take on this, Maree. I think for our trust, if we're talking about the collapsing of the system, our trust, because for so long we've trusted the system, and obviously now we might be seeing it as a different illusion and we don't trust it anymore. The unknown is about trusting your inner self, there's two different layers of trust, isn't there?
So the old system, we got trust where we traded our power. So I know if I behave a certain way, I will get a certain result.
And I'll be rewarded. I'll be rewarded.
So if I do 1 + 1 = 2, right? And that 1 + 1 can be hard and it can be heavy and I can oppress somebody else. But if I know if I do this, I will get this. So it's like an achievement reward system. Within that we give our power away to whatever is going to give us that reward or make us feel safe or one of those things. Mm-hmm. In the world of the unknown, the magic we're building where the trust has to come from internal, we're now dancing with the divine masculine, where we build our own structures. In the past, we've given our power away either to the unresourceful, wounded masculine, which says, I'm more powerful than you because I have more resources than you and I'll undermine you until you give me what I want. And the unresourceful feminine said, I'm helpless, I'm powerless, somebody come and save me. We activate the actual divine masculine through the wounded feminine, where we take our power back, where we don't trust anybody, not even ourselves, and we go, I need to decide that I'm going to build that trust. I'm going to live in this space. And we can flip vibration. We step out of the wounded masculine by accepting the invitation of the divine feminine, which says you have intuition, you have internal guidance and internal power. You don't need to take it from somebody else. And we reverse the energy back. And then we take those two divine, intuitive, wise, communicative, connected, open human beings who want to trust and have transparency, and we marry it together. That's where when we sit with that in the unknown, we're no longer in fear. We're in invitation and after invitation after invitation of magic. Of things that we've only dreamed about, the big, bold, beautiful, not just for ourselves, but for every other person, because we're no longer looking or fearing that someone's got more power than us. We're no longer fearing that someone's going to take our power away or we have to give it up. We're no longer in those spaces. We are walking side by side, and collectively things shift really quickly. That's exciting.
Absolutely. So why do you think women right now, and men, because I got told off the other day by a man that listens to my podcast, he said, Lily, you got to include me. I feel like when you say woman, you don't include me. So why is it right now the women and men that are intuitive workers, healers, why are they being called to step forward and show up?
Because they understand whether you've been playing in the space or not, you're already plugged in, connected to divine energies. We just haven't fully embodied them and lived them 24/7 because the other system we've either escaped from, we've been in fear of, or we weren't in a position to foster just how big and bold and beautiful that is. And so we're at that precipice where we go, let's look at the energetic systems of the patriarchy. Look at the people that sit right down the bottom, that abuse, that are violent, and people that we see on TV a lot. Their ability to go from there to divinely connected is really huge. So it's probably unlikely they're going to be our leaders of change. People that have already been in the energetic flows of intuition and wisdom, what we are now letting go of is our own ego and our own sense that we are trying to get to a top. We're letting go of the structure of the system and leaning more into the importance and the power and the potency of our intuition and the reality of that. It's not something we make up. It's actually got life. It's where life comes from. And so we individually need to be able to own that identity for ourselves. And when we're able to do that internal work, we shift. We're closer to the point. We've been living the point longer, and we have more trust points in the point. It's not like a hallelujah, I've been saved energy, which we find a lot from the system. Look what I found. I've found whoever. I've found whatever. I've found this organization, and they're going to, now I'm saved. With all due respect, it's bullshit, because it's still, the energetic value has not changed from the individual or the acts that they may have participated in. While we're coming into individual, we are creating a collective people who trust and respect the power of intuition and the reality of it. And our wisdom, and I use this example a lot, think about a riverbed. A riverbed only exists because the bed has trust that it can be by itself while the water will flow it. The bed is the masculine, the water is the feminine. Without each other, nothing exists. And so for a lot of time up until now, where we've been sitting in our intuitive self, we have not built the riverbed of trust to hold us. And that's what we're being asked to do right now. Men or women is regardless. The challenge, though, I'll be really clear for men, is you have less risk in the patriarchal world. And so you may have less insight, and that's a generalization of the depth of the feminine, because the feminine energy, while it's not gender, in the patriarchal system, it was very much gendered. Yes. So while we all know what it feels like to be in our intuition and we get our guidance and we feel amazing and we feel more of ourselves, that's also in context to the privilege you have in the old system. And it's why we find Indigenous cultures and older cultures have far more depth in their knowing. It's because they don't live inside the patriarchal system.
Yeah.
They're also more oppressed by that system. And so for men, your work is also about identifying the privilege you have in the old system, that you cannot bring that privilege with you into the new system. Otherwise, you have not changed anything. And I say that with love. You have a lot of opportunity, but when you think about people that understand the energetics, white men are at the bottom of the list if there's a list, even if you've been doing a lot of work, because you can't help but overlay the privilege that you hold in the old system. And I would love more men to be able to let go of that privilege and really start to be change leaders. The reality is that women will probably lead the next few hundred years, if not thousands of years, just because they have let go more of their privilege than men. So men, there's a challenge for you. If you want to come along and lead with us, come along. There's no holds bar, but we can't have any of the old privilege come with it.
No, because then we're not leading into the new era. Okay, I've got two interesting questions for you that have just come through. So for the next generation of children that are, at school right now, what do you see them creating in this Aquarian era? What do you see being birthed?
So let's think about who we're talking about. They're about 10, 11 under. That's the generation we're talking
Tom's
about.
age. Yeah,
so your
Tom's
son's age. That's the generation that, and we also see in that generation, the patriarchal system will label them more, try and put them in boxes. But this generation doesn't fit in boxes.
Shit, no.
No. And so they come in, so if you think about evolution, the people that we birth, either physically or by the time that we pass on, start with our level of evolution. Like they don't start from 5,000 years ago. So they already come in with their DNA and all of their evolution heightened than when we started. That's why we go, oh my God, they've been here before. They're more connected. So to all the parents who have children in that age group, congratulations, because you are the stewards of those people and that energy and that insight and that amazingness. They will challenge the structured environments like education and the workforce because they're evolved out of it already. So those environments need to become more energetically favorable. They need to understand grounding and energetic management rather than intellectual management, because the kids are more sensitive generally, and so they're sharing. Unless a kid knows how to not share its energy and get caught up and entangled, kids will get lost in those systems because the structure's too harsh against their vibration. So these kids will look at the world and go, what do you mean you guys had war? That's just ridiculous. Like, you don't treat people like that. We don't, because they're vibrationally not living in that structure. They'll be like, what do you mean that you had, that's how you resolved things? Don't be so silly. Like they'll look at our world like a history book of insanity. And in reality, that's true. It is insanity.
Thomas already hurts by some of the stuff he says. It blows my mind.
So when we say we're creating the unknown, that's the world, that they're the people that will be creating it, because their brains are not got geared the way. They don't have to go through the old wounds that we had. They don't have to combat any of the old toxic systems of abuse that we had. And of course, that means en masse we need to move. En masse we need to move into these spaces. These kids have the room and the energy to do what they're here to do, which is create whatever the hell they want to create, which is not tied to that linear version of success. We'll see more play and more nature, and we'll go back to having cultivated communities around food. They'll break the food systems. They'll break open the pharmaceutical systems purely because they will not participate. And we see that already in some of the older generations. They just simply don't participate. That generation, unfortunately, while they're not participating, they haven't yet created what else it will be. So they're basically sitting in blank energy. Their non-participating is good. It's dismantling things, but it's not replacing it with anything else. That next generation will be the ones who will create the next iteration of life.
Yeah. So conversations that Thomas has had just in the last 6 weeks blows my mind. He said to me the other day, we're so lucky, fortunate, Mum, that we live by the ocean. And I said, why are you saying that, hun? Well, if we lived in China, we might not even never see the ocean. And, why? And he said the other day, you know what, Mum, wars are pointless. It's about killing people and hurting the land. And I go, yeah, you're onto it, Tom. And he goes, when are we going to have world leaders that are actually going to care about people? And I'm like, you're 9 years old and you were thinking this, where some 45-year-olds just think that's a normal day at the office. That's just how it is. That's how the world has to be. And you're 9 years old and you're actually already thinking about that in a bigger context. That just blows my mind.
And it's where we get power from. You think about when world leaders and countries have this idea that we are the most powerful country in the world and we exert our power through war and oppression. There's no humanity there. Whereas this generation is like led by humanity. Like it's in their DNA to be led by humanity. And our generation is waking up to humanity. They're starting with humanity. And so a lot of the things that we endured, suffered, even supported in our privilege, they will go, wow, that's weird and wrong. And what were you thinking? Because they're humanity first.
Yeah. So what bold magic are you creating, sister?
So this year has been I don't even know I've got words for this year. I opened the year up with the word of prosperity and I went, wow, awesome. It's been a long time since I've focused on prosperity. Assuming and thinking in my old privileged patriarchal mind, because it was coming through my mind, that prosperity would mean ease of money and flow and all the things we're taught in the spiritual world, get in the flow and get aligned and whoa, it's amazing. And all the opposite happened. The moment that I connected in my work, which I teach people how to come out of the solar plexus into the heart, the moment I stepped into there was this world of prosperity that my mind had never, ever considered. Not literally. It can talk about it, it can read about it, it can fantasize about it, but it hadn't literally gone, how do you live that level of prosperity? And it upended my world in a way that I could never have imagined. It put me into months of feeling stuck and frozen in time, through to feeling like months I'd gone a month and felt like I'd gone through years of work. It's been a year of recalibrating what my magic really is about and being able to know, live and understand that from a soul level, not just an intellectual level. And I think that's one of the big shifts for all of us is, if you've come through the spiritual world, through intuition or personal development or coaching, whatever it is, healing, therapy, we've been taught structures of spirituality. We've been taught, how-tos. But now we've been asked to be it. And so when you live it, there is no other option but it. So when you're not being it, you're not being anything. And that's been my lived experience in 2024. And it has been, and you know this, so painful and scary and exhilarating. And I feel like my head has been spun around on my shoulders so many times. And what it's allowed me to do is have the experience of what is my transparent self, my divine masculine, what does it actually want for me in my life, and what is that trust bowl, that trust space that what my magic needs to sit in. And it is about prosperity. It's about combining and marrying that masculine feminine energy in a way where people get to connect with themselves. We talk about the word embodiment, but sometimes that's still intellectual. What does it feel like for your voice to be activated at the vibration of what it is that you want to really share in the world? What does it feel like to stand in your own light of your solar plexus and your power? And what does it feel like to claim your prosperity? Because in the divine energies, it's all abundance and prosperous. There's no fighting for it. There's no climbing to it. There's no working for it. there is being it. And I had been avoiding that for a really long time because of the people-pleasing role I played within my family and making sure everybody else was okay before I came to myself. And guess what? That road caught up with me. It caught up with me in a lot of ways. My physical health, my financial health, my mental health, it all caught up with me at once because it was, as we talked about before, the end of the road. The karma was over. The people pleaser no longer has a role in my life. We must come internal. And so my bold magic is actually creating a space for other people's bold magic to come alive. And my body vibrates in such a different way when I talk about it. And we must marry, not just talk in hypotheticals, but how do we help people live in their physical body? Like, how do we know, as we said before, how does the energy of that expanded version of transparency and trust and wisdom and magic and intuition and all those things, how does it actually feel and live in your body 24/7? Not just when you sit in a meditation circle, not just when you remember, but 24/7. That's where my bold magic is. That's what's come forward after this year of, I don't even know the language for to explain that without swearing, but that after this year, and maybe others can relate. I do believe there are so many people on the planet right now who are ready to understand their own bold magic. And I am absolutely humbled and honoured that my soul wants to be part of that.
I think you answered my next question because I was about to say, what is your soul's mission? So this is your soul's mission.
It is my soul's mission.
And how does that feel? How does that feel? Because I know when we connect to our soul's mission, because I've just connected to mine, and you know what more, and our soul's work, it makes everything else not feel insignificant, but it makes it feel bigger and more potent and more layered and more magical.
It does. And I think, we've been talking about the old system collapsing and going away. I think there was part of me that was still really holding tight to some parts of the system because there are people I love that are in that system and I know they're never going to come out of it. And I've been delaying my own soul, been denying my own soul, thinking I could barter with it, I think that's what I've been doing, saying, well, yeah, but I can do that because it's so powerful and so big. I can do that part-time because I really need to look after these people. And I've got to wait till they either pass away or they wake up. And I know from my mum's life experience that does not work. And she did not live her life for me to suffer the way she suffered. And I didn't sign up to do that either. But I feel like I've been living that moment of watching the system collapse and grieving the part of me that worked that system so well to protect other people. Like I was a protector in that system. I protected myself, but I protected so many people in that system. And I had to grieve that part of me that she's no longer needed. Her job is done. And the part of me, the soul part of me now is ready to be fully expressed and embodied. And the little girl in me took a while to be able to allow that to happen. So our soul feels like home, and that sounds a bit cliched, but our soul feels, I think we get to feel the bigger, mission is the wrong word, but the bigger calling and the bigger realization that there is so much more joy and love and abundance and wisdom that we have not even tapped into. That's where our soul is. Our soul's not asking us to feel like crap. Our soul's asking us to feel amazing. But we've been so used to that being a byproduct of hard work rather than a natural state of being. That flip for me has been, I've had to really grieve the protector in me.
Mm. what you just shared was so profound and so big. And I know so many people will resonate with that because they'll be realizing within themselves the roles that they've played, and also awakening to the fact that not everyone's coming through with them. Not everyone's when we're in this splitting of the old structures and the new, because I believe, possibly like you, the world's not ending. It's going to be a splitting of consciousness, and there'll be people that we love and care for that will still be living in this dimensional frequency, and there'll be people over here that will be living in this dimensional frequency. And I know that for myself, that's people that I care for too, and that is hard because I feel that it's going to get harder and harder for us to be in that frequency. Like our physical body's going to repulse it.
Our physical body, and that's why it's been physically so hard, but it's also your soul's gone, that's it, enough. Every time you go back there, you're going to feel like so much like crap. You're not going to want to be there. So our physical body is the one that's pushing us back in. And I think the thing is, the more that we embrace our soul's mission, our soul's magic, whatever it is, however you call it, the easier it is for the other system to disappear. The easier it is for the other system to dismantle without pain. And so if we think, okay, well, I need to tiptoe into this side of me and tiptoe into my mission, tiptoe with my soul, tiptoe through my joy, and tiptoe to my abundance, and don't tell people, and tiptoe over here because I don't want to spook the old system, I want you to really rethink that. Because the more that you do that, the more pain you are enduring in the old system. The more that you embrace, the more that you want joy, more prosperity, more all the things that you want that we are here to now expand and experience through the heart, the more you live into that, the less pain exists in the old world. So people that are stuck in that world will have less of that world because your frequency is greater. And so if you want to have less pain in the world, you need to step into this energetic vibration, not sit there and wait for it to collapse. You're building it by switching out altogether, and then they will have less pain. They have more opportunity for less awareness before they pass, or they may even tiptoe closer to you, and so your angst is reduced. So we're not separate in the fact that there's a fence between us. The energetic vibration is so different that they will impact, the density will have less impact on the joy, but the joy has more impact on the density. And that's really what you want for your loved ones, the ones that, and your day-to-day as well, that you don't have to feel it as heavy. It's like washing the joy through it, even though they can't connect with it or hold it. But the more you wash through it, there's some souls that'll connect with it. There's some people that will relax, and it will become less dense as we move through. So that was a really big shift in conversation.
But it's what's needed. So, Maree, thank you so much for your time and all of the wisdom that you've shared. Like, it has been out the gate. How do people, what sacred offerings do you have, and how do people connect with you, girl?
The easiest and best way to connect with me is on Instagram. I've let go of, part of this is I've purged all of my old systems, my website have all gone. And so you can connect with me on Instagram, and I'm not saying I won't have those things in the future. I just don't have them at the moment. There are two ways I'd love people to think about this. If you are really just getting to know your energetic world and wanting to make peace with it, I've got this amazing, beautiful $59 2-week voice program course called the Great Grounding Palooza that you can connect with on my Instagram page in my bio. And it's a daily recording of energy teachings and trainings from me and daily practices to help you reset and get focused on that energetic value of what you've got to create. If you are someone who is already really clear and you know that you want to step into this sharing and understanding your deep bold magic, my bold magic offerings are about to explode. And so I have a bold magic mastermind I'm releasing, and I'm so, I don't want to cry, but I'm so proud of being able to hold the space for this, to myself and for other people. And so if you're interested and curious about how you actually do activate your voice so you can hold that frequency and capacity for what you want to bring and be in the world, and you want to feel comfortable in the light of your own power so that you can claim your prosperity in the person that you are, in the magic that you create, in the environments that you lead, then DM me on Instagram. I'd love to have a chat to you about it. The world, your energetic world, is the core operating system of who you really are, and that's the power of your magic.
You might need to say that again, because that is potent, Maree.
We are moving into realizing that the energetic version of who we are is actually our power. That is who we are. And every time we deviate off that, we are lessening our ability to be in our potency. And potency and power are no longer about over other people. It's all for you and your communities and the people that you're here to lead. And so the more that we get to lead our voice, our power, and our prosperity, the bigger our bold magic becomes.
I love you. I love what you share. I love your wisdom. I love your energy. I love your time. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your work into the world at a time that it is so needed to activate others. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lily.